Well, guys, it was quite the week, wasn't it? Wow. Words can't even really describe the amount of, I guess, elation that I feel right now. We're as I film this, it's Wednesday afternoon, so we're one day removed from Terry and Kim Pagula announcing that they're going to buy the Buffalo Bills, and they're just going to wait for approval in the fall meetings, which I'm sure it'll go through. It'll be fine because he paid $1.4 billion for the team. And I can't even describe the feeling. Ever since I was a little kid, the question has been, Ralph Wilson's really old. What's going to happen when he dies? And, he lived to be 95, God rest his soul. And he finally passed, and, the question's been looming for 6 months. What's going to happen with the Bills? And we have resolution. They're not going anywhere. They're staying home. And I really don't need to describe the importance of that to you if you're watching this video, to the community. I mean, it's just, it's an unreal feeling. It's totally, I'm so satisfied, grateful for Terry and Kim Pagula. And like I said, I have a hard time putting in words because it's the culmination of a question, like I said, that has been looming for years, forever, for as long as I can remember. And that's it. We won. That's it. It's over. They're staying for a long time. I'm happy. I know you guys are happy. I'm happy. And what makes me even more happy is the fact that the Bills just beat the Bears in overtime, and further proving that they're the most unpredictable team in the league, because you never know when they're going to show up. And they showed up Sunday in a pretty big way. Despite, now, usually I don't blame the referees, but they got jobbed. The Bills got jobbed on a couple bad calls. It felt like we were playing against the refs a little bit. And I hate leading with that, but I want to get that out of the way. The holding call on 3rd and 10, where the Bears converted and they picked it up, is just unreal. You don't see a hold, an offensive hold, and then pick it up. You might pick up a defensive hold or a defensive illegal contact, pass interference because the ball's tipped, or what have you. Quarterback's out of the pocket. I don't know. There's rules that go with that even I admit I don't know. But I do know if you see an offensive hold, you see an offensive hold. And you don't pick that flag up. And it had a direct impact on the game, because the Bears nearly went down and won that game. Maybe they felt like they made up for it when they didn't call pass interference on Corey Graham on that play with Santonio Holmes. But that was tough. A couple things didn't go their way there, but all in all, they played, I would say, a pretty impressive game, considering as tough a draw as that was on the road against Chicago on opening day. Chicago's kind of a sexy pick to take the division, maybe make the playoffs. People are talking like Michael Irvin, talking about Jay Cutler being MVP. No way. MVPs don't throw across their body on 3rd and 1 and get picked off by a defensive lineman. It just doesn't happen. Stupid play on his part. Glad it happened, absolutely. I was pretty much impressed almost from start to finish, because the start, obviously, I wasn't. When they went 3 and out, the Bills I'm talking about, went 3 and out, and then the Bears just marched down the field and scored a touchdown. Preston Brown falls down. Martellus Bennett scores easily. You're thinking, well, here we go. It's going to be a rough one. But it wasn't at all. The Bills answered like they usually don't. Like could be a sign here of things that are changing. It's a new age. They took a 10-point lead, and in true Bills fashion, they gave that 10-point lead away in the second half. But they responded with some huge plays. Robert Woods coming up with a huge catch. I don't need to tell you about Fred Jackson's run in overtime. That was incredible. Great block by Eric Wood on that play, by the way. If you get a chance to look at that play again, look at Eric Wood as he's engaged with the defensive tackle. Just reaches his arm out and stops Lance Briggs. Knocks Lance Briggs flat on his back, and Briggs probably would have made that tackle. Instead, Bills win the game. Mike Williams coming up with a huge catch in overtime. Wasn't that involved in the game, only had 2 catches. Watkins only had 3 catches. Manuel only kept it once on the keeper on the zone read, but it was a touchdown. So there's not a whole lot to complain about offensively. The offensive line played pretty well. Seantrell Henderson got beat for 1 sack. It's the only time Manuel got sacked. He had, he showed escapability. He stepped out of bounds when he needed to, which we like. When he evaded the pocket or left the pocket, he didn't have constant pressure in his face. Sure, he faced some pressure, but I mean, all in all, it was very, very encouraging in performance, especially on the road, because the Bills haven't really won a meaningful road game since week 1 against the Chiefs 3 years ago. At least that's what it feels like. I could be wrong. You can correct me on that if you want. But, I mean, I don't count Jacksonville last year. I don't really count Miami last year because Thad Lewis was playing, and you're playing with your backup. You're hampered by that. So, I'm glad they won that game last year, obviously. But, like I said, Manuel's the quarterback. But that's a good transition because Thad Lewis beat the Dolphins twice last year. Thad Lewis no longer with the Bills, of course. But the Bills play the Dolphins in the home opener this week. And trust me, you want to be there. I work at the stadium. I work in 221 and 222. You can come by, you can visit me, but you got to be there. I mean, even if you're planning on drinking, you might want to not drink. Or at least don't get blackout, because this is going to be awesome. It's the first game, sort of with Terry Pagula as the owner. Like, it's going to be insane. It's the home opener. The first game without Ralph, the first game with the new owner. And we're against Miami, one of the biggest rivals the Bills have ever had. So, if not the biggest, that place is going to be rocking, especially coming off a huge win against Chicago. Miami also coming off a huge win against New England, which, I mean, there you go. The 2 teams who ruin the most people's chances in survivor pools playing each other this week. Because the Patriots and the Bears, I'm pretty sure, were the 2 most picked. Maybe the Eagles were in there as well. 2 most picked in survivor pools across the country, I'm sure. Like I said, Miami coming off a huge win. They beat the Patriots. They score, I believe, 23 unanswered points to beat the Patriots. They put a ton of pressure on Tom Brady. That's going to be a huge part of this game. Can Seantrell Henderson and Cordy Glenn keep Randy Starks, Cameron Wake, Jared Odrick out of the backfield? That's a big part of it. That's a group effort. Talking about Eric Wood, Chris Williams. Chris Williams, I didn't really notice. I know that Fred Jackson's run in overtime was to the left, so that's about the only time I really noticed where Chris Williams might have had a meaningful play. And I guess that's a good thing, right? Because you didn't notice him getting just torched. The running game struggled at times, I'm sure, but the Bills still ran for 193 yards. I believe it was 193. I got it right here. Let's check it out. They ran for 193 yards. That was 3rd in the league last week. That said, the Dolphins ran for 191 yards. They passed the Dolphins for 169 yards. The Bills passed for 167 yards. So they both ended up with the exact same amount of total yards, that being 360. That's kind of a little fun stat, I suppose. Defensively, they almost gave up the same amount of rushing yards. The Dolphins gave up 89, the Bills gave up 86. Passing yards was a little different. The Bills gave up 341. Mind you, Jay Cutler was just slinging it. I believe he attempted 49 passes. And the Dolphins only gave up 226. The Dolphins have a revamped secondary. They have Brent Grimes. They have Cortland Finnegan back there. Who's the rookie? Is he a rookie? Jamar Taylor? Is that his name? they're pretty good back there. They got Luis Delmas from Detroit, so they're pretty good back there. They lost Daniel Ellerbe for the year. They signed Kelvin Shepard. There's a blast from the past, and they still have Philip Wheeler. I think that's their second. That would be their weakness on defense, I guess, would be the linebacking core. Because I think they're really strong up front, and they're pretty strong in the secondary. So the Bills might be able to expose them at the second level. Scott Chandler's got to start making a difference. Maybe get a receiver or a Spiller or Jackson lined up on a linebacker and get them open. And like I said, the battle starts up front. At least if you can get Spiller and Jackson, at least in the running game, into the second level, that's when. That goes without saying. That always happens. You got to, you get that push on offensive line, and when you got two talented running backs like Spiller and Jackson, especially when you get them to the second level, good things are going to happen. And like I said, that goes without saying, because Noshawn Moreno ran very well for the Dolphins last week, and they did a great job of getting him to the second level. He ran for 134 yards, but he just ran well against the Patriots. He ran for 224 yards against them last year. So maybe that's an isolated thing. I don't really know. I'm going to hope it's an isolated thing. I think, the Bills shut out the Dolphins last year at home, 19-0. So, and they sacked Tannehill a bunch of times. It was one of the more complete victories they've had in a long time. And Thad Lewis was the quarterback, as you may remember. So, this game is it's huge. Who would have thought that this game would be for first place in the AFC East, essentially? The winner's going to be 2-0. The loser's going to be 1-1, depending on what the Jets do. Could be all alone, and the Jets are at Green Bay. So that looks like you don't want to write anybody off, but that is a game that they're certainly going to have a tough time with. The Bills could be all alone in front of the AFC East after 2 weeks, 2-0. I don't have to explain the magnitude of that to you. I know that it's still early in the season, but I'd rather start 2-0 than not start 2-0, and I think this presents a very good chance at doing that. Tannehill looks better for the Dolphins. He showed some rapport with Mike Wallace finally, which, Mike Wallace looked lost at times last year. But he had this stupid interview referring to himself in the third person, whatever. He's an idiot. I hope Gilmore plays. That was a bit of a gut punch last week, especially when you're going against good receivers. Even if Gilmore plays, Corey Graham has to get on the field because that dude was lights out last week. By far the most impressive player on the field, at least defensively for the Bills. Because, he was in there all the time. He had an interception. He made a huge play on Santonio Holmes towards the end of the game to force overtime. They kept going at him, and he kept responding with plays. And even if Gilmore's back, McKelvin had a rough day. He was playing against a receiver that was definitely better than him. That's really all I can say. I would like him to perform better, obviously. But at the same time, I kind of understand. Brandon Marshall's one of the better receivers in the league. So is Jeffrey. McKelvin's rarely out of position, but he has a tough time making play on the ball. That's the one thing I've noticed with him. But I think that like last week, we thought our defense might be outmatched by the Bears' offense, especially on the road. This week, I think it's at least a draw. You might even give the advantage to the Bills, especially because they're at home, and they might even have a more talented defense than Miami does in offense. Where does that leave me? It's prediction time, I guess. I like the Bills defensively. I like the Bills offensively, like the way they move the ball. Dan Carpenter, AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. I like the play calling. I'm picking the Bills, which is stupid. Why am I doing that? Because I'm going to be wrong. I'm wrong all the time. I picked the Bears last week. I'm going to pick the Bills to beat the Dolphins 20-16 in the home opener. Guys, be there. Section 221, 222. I work at. I wear a big orange jacket or shirt. I'll be there. Come see me. We'll talk Bills. We'll be 2-0. All right? Enjoy your weekend. Go Bills.